Okay, so today we're going to be talking about numeric and algebraic expressions. You see in front of you your two learning targets. I can evaluate numeric expressions, I can simplify algebraic expressions, and then the title, which is numeric and algebraic expressions. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to write down your two learning targets and your title. I also want you to get a copy of this piece of paper, and you're going to cut around the outside so that it looks like this. And then you're going to cut on these solid black lines, and then you're going to fold on the two dotted lines so that when you're finished, it will look something like this. So go ahead, pause the video, write down your learning targets, and go ahead and cut out and fold your item. You're also going to need some crayons. You can also use your own colored pencils if you have them with you, but I left crayons on your tables. So you're going to need a red, a blue, a purple, a green, and a yellow. So go ahead and pause and do that at this time. Okay, so if you're back, then that means you have cut out your foldable and you are ready to begin. So we are going to start by writing some information at the top of this page. So just kind of push this foldable to the side, and we're going to talk a little bit about numeric expressions. So numeric expressions is exactly what it sounds like. It's expressions that are made of numbers. So the technical definition is a math sentence that includes numbers and operations. And we're going to review operations in just a few minutes, but some examples of some numeric expressions would be things like, just real simple, 4 plus 2. Now you notice there's no equal symbol because that makes it no longer an expression but an equation. Now you can see some harder ones, like we might say 5 times 3 minus 6 squared, or 9 divided by 6 times 2 to the third power. So those are just some examples of numeric expressions. So today we're going to be talking specifically about algebraic expressions. So I'm going to give you just a chance to write this down as well. Algebraic expressions. The root word here is algebra. So these are math sentences, or a math sentence that includes numbers. You all know what numbers are. Variables, which we're going to talk about what variables are in just a second. Really, they're just letters. And operations. So some examples of algebraic expressions would be 10 times 2 plus c minus 3. So you see we've got some numbers, we have our operations, but now we've got this letter thrown in there that really stands for a number. Or we might see a plus b times 3 minus c. Now, technically it can be any letter. A lot of times you'll find...
Ms. Schultz, please call Mr. Frazier's office. Ms. Schultz, please call Mr. Frazier's office. Thank you.
Sorry for that interruption. A lot of times you'll find that people will use just one letter, like N is used a lot, or X is used a lot. A's, B's, and C's are used a lot. Okay, so now we're going to get to this foldable. So this is where you're going to need your colored pencils or your crayons that I've provided for you. We are going to talk a little bit about this expression. So this says 3x plus 4. We're going to start with this plus symbol right here, and we're going to open this up, and we are going to color this in real lightly with a blue crayon or a blue colored pencil. So you see what I'm doing here. And you see this is called an operation. So operations are the mathematical processes that we use to solve a problem. Those include adding, subtracting, multiplying. Typically, multiplying is going to be a dot when you're talking about algebra, and we'll talk about why in just a second. And then, of course, dividing. So I need you to copy this down. Once you're done with that, we're going to close this up. And now we're going to go to this part. So this 3 is really connected to the x. You notice this 3 up here is all by itself, and this c is all by itself. But if you look, you see that these two are kind of stuck together. So we're going to open up this 3, and we're going to color code in this box red, and you see that that box says coefficient. A coefficient is a number paired with a variable. And in math terms, when you see a number 2s, that really means 2 times s. So it means to multiply whatever your variable is times your coefficient. Again, this number right here is called a coefficient. You see how it's sort of attached to the variable. Once we're finished with that one, we're going to move on to this x. So we're going to open this up. We're going to color code this in with a green color. And that word is variable. And a variable is a symbol. That symbol is usually a letter that represents or that stands for a missing number. So that means we don't know what that number is. In this case, we're using an x for that variable because we aren't sure what x is, but we're going to talk later in our unit about how to figure that out. So this is what we've got so far. A coefficient is the number that is attached to a variable. That means multiply. So this would mean 3 times whatever x is. Then we know that operations are those things like add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And then this last one is just a plain number. Now you notice there's no variable attached to this. It's just a number. It's the number 4. So we're going to open that up, and we're going to color this one in with our yellow. Now this is called a constant. And while you're coloring, let me tell you that a constant means it doesn't change. So if I say you're constantly riding the bus, that means you ride the bus every day. That never changes. So a constant is a number that stands alone. There's no variable with it, and that's why it's called a constant, because there will be no change to that number. In other words, that 4 is just a 4. I'm not going to multiply it by anything. I'm not going to add it to anything because it is just a 4. So that 4 is going to constantly be a 4. So if you need to pause the video, go back and redo any of that, do it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to write an algebraic expression right here. So I'm going to ask you to write an algebraic expression. And that algebraic expression is going to look like this. 2A is an apple plus 5B is in bat plus C minus 6. Okay, once we've got that written, we're going to go through and we're going to color code everything that we see. So we started with coefficients. Coefficients are numbers that are attached to letters. So I see that there is a 2 right here, which means 2 times whatever this A is. I also see a 5, and I know that that means 5 times whatever B is. Now you notice there's a C right here, and there's not a coefficient with it. But actually there is. There is a coefficient there, and that coefficient is an imaginary coefficient, and that imaginary coefficient looks like this. Because if I just write a C, that means there's only one of them. So there is a coefficient there. It's just that we don't typically write it. It's a 1. So if you want to write that in, you can, but there is an understood 1 there. The next thing that we talked about were variables. So I see an A, which stands for some number, a B, which stands for some number, and a C, which stands for some number. Now I want to point out that if A were 5, this does not mean that it would be 25. It means we would do 2 times 5. So keep that in mind. The next thing that we're going to highlight or color in are our operations. So we're going to do blue. Operations are add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So I see an addition symbol, and I see another addition symbol, and I see a subtraction symbol. So I color coded those. And we do have a constant in this particular example. A constant is a number that stands alone, no change. So this is our constant. It's a constant of 6. Now at the bottom, this says that we have terms. So a term is a part of an algebraic expression, and it's a combination of coefficients and variables or just variables or constants. So I'll let you write that down. If you need to pause the video, you can. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our purple and we're going to outline that word term. And then we're going to go back up to our example and we're going to box out the terms. So this is a term because it's a combination of a coefficient with a variable. So these two always go together, they travel together. I also see that this is a term because it says plus 5b.
Come to my office, please. Thank you.
Then we have another term, it's plus 1c. And then we have this term, which is minus 6. So you notice that I put the operation with each term because that is important for us to know. So this particular example has 4 terms. And if you look at it, it kind of makes sense because it has 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this video is getting ready to end. Before this video ends though, you want to make sure that you have all your information written down, and then what you're going to do is you're going to fold this up. You're going to put glue on the back of this. The instructions say glue this section to your interactive notebook. So you're going to put glue on the back and you are going to glue it right here. Now you'll notice I'm leaving all this empty space at the bottom because we're going to add some additional information there in your next video.